All right. I figured I'm going to take my largest list that I've made so far and talk about it. So, I wanted to make a list on, to me, what video games really defined or changed JRPGs. And you'll see that a lot of these were the first, and then multiple games came out trying to emulate it in some way, shape, or form. And there's no bias. These aren't always the best games out there, but they are definitely game changers. I'm going to start out with Thousand Arms just because, I mean, this game is very underrated. It's one of the first dating sims JRPGs. So, I mean, imagine that you get to date a girl and helps you make better weapons. So you're going to step up your game. But after this game, there was many other ones where you had bonds with characters and it progressed the story, or it had different endings, or it enhanced your attacks with that character. So this one was kind of a game changer in that kind of dating sim add to RPGs. Lunar, wow, this was this is what I would call the cleanest JRPG I've ever played, meaning it's simple. There's nothing groundbreaking in the gameplay mechanics, but you just have a very solid story and progression from point A to point Z. You go on a journey and it's very engaging, and I just can't think of a game that is just as clean as that one. I don't know why, but the word clean is really the best way I can define it. Everything's well balanced. All the characters are entertaining. They have growth. They have music and singing and emotional and heartbreak and yeah, it's good stuff. Ogre Battle. This is one of the first strategy tactical games that came out where you kind of throw units at each other and they can level up and grow over time. It's not exactly the funnest game I've ever played, but it started something big, and it was a good one because I mean most RPGs, right? They're just or tactical RPG, should I say? You have a grid, right? This one you send people in a direction, so it's kind of exciting to see that live strategic battle. Persona 3, out of all the Personas, this one was the first one that really blew things up, and kind of was the baseline for 4 and 5. And there's actually a lot of video games out there that have been trying to emulate that Persona style game in different ways. Caligula Effect, just off the top of my head, Tokyo, Xanadu EX, etc. There's a lot of little ones out there trying to be like a Persona, but this one really defined that kind of teen angst genre of kind of growing and building relations and inner demons, etc. This guy, I actually really hate this series with a passion. I think it's ridiculous, but it's a hilarious story and entertaining. I don't know, I just hate it. Earthbound is one of the funniest and well-made games I ever played. It's a journey uh, around the world and having to deal with aliens trying to destroy it. Lots of deep conspiracy theories about the purpose of the game. I won't get into any of that, but you know, it's one of the first games that was made as an RPG, but also made to be funny and enjoyable and kind of pokes fun at RPGs. And that is a trend that has been seen, but I don't think anything ever can be better than the mother to Pokemon. Now, what to say here? It's one of the first monster collector games that kind of started out a genre in itself for JRPGs. Chrono Trigger, I put this in here not just because it's an amazing game, but it also is one of the first with multiple endings. So that means that like the way you play the game and what the outcome you end up with is going to be unique, and that's kind of made the replayability of RPGs go up. Most games you play it once, you beat it, you know the story, you're done. Chrono Trigger kind of changed that of, hey, well, if you take different paths, you can have alternate endings, and that is enjoyable in itself. Not to mention the play style and everything's really good, but I want to say everything else on top of that was too much game changing. I think one of the features they had was when you have two characters can unite their skills together to create a unique attack. That was kind of a unique one for it. Secret of Mana, the first two-player multiplayer game out there where you can sit with your friend on the SNES and play it together. That was definitely a fun one that I'll never forget. The journey and the artwork was beautiful for that time. Dragon Quest as a whole, from 1 to 11 and so on, has kind of created its own subgenre itself of that silent protagonist and going through those stories and adventures with the character. The sounds for each attack and miss and encounters are still consistent to this day. And, I don't think there's ever been a good replication of Dragon Quest in its style, but it's definitely something that people will stop and play just for the title. Final Fantasy, this is the series statement as a whole. Final Fantasy is consistently changing the way that JRPGs are played, and I'll kind of go into it as I break down the other ones, but this is the first of many. Final Fantasy VII was a big leap in the visual aesthetics, the story, the materia, the whole adventure itself. I definitely think that this Final Fantasy VII is one that many people have in a top 10 list. Almost everybody who plays JRPGs will have played Final Fantasy VII. It's just that great of a game that it transcends age. Fire Emblem and its tactical RPGs is very popular. They have grown throughout time, where you start out with just basic characters trying to do a rock, paper, scissors of like bows, spears, and axes and magic, to units having relationships and growing those relationships to increase their stats, to even having generations of players where they have kids, or characters that have kids, and its growth has been great. Their newer ones are very enjoyable, and they're always kind of trying to find a new spin on while keeping their original traditional ways, kind of like Dragon Quest. Final Fantasy III, that was the first job system, so I have to throw that in there. Job systems became really popular after that. Dragon Slayer is the first action RPG ever made. It's pretty crappy, but it's what kind of started the whole thing. Tales of Fantasia, this goes for all Tales games as an action RPG as well. Being known for having a decent, if not great, to amazing story, depending on which one you play. Lots of different characters to transition out of, the art system, cooking, whatnot. That one, and of course right next to it, Star Ocean. These two are very similar in their stories and adventures, and sometimes different endings. And they're so much alike and so much different. You have kind of more of a fantasy versus a sci-fi, but these two series really, I don't think I've met anybody who loves JRPGs that haven't tried a Tales or a Star Ocean game. And they are continuously putting out new ones each year, or every few years, that really just beautiful games. Phantasy Star is the original like sci-fi RPG. A lot of people who haven't played it before, but it's kind of thinking outside the norm for back then, and it wasn't horrible. Suikoden, that's one of my personal favorites of the series. This one is we're a lot more of just you recruit up to 108 characters. Some of them are fighters. I mean, people help you with your castle. Incorporates tactical warfare as well as, units find each other. They have the 3 front, 3 back runes. There's also really cool features to Suikoden that's unique to just that series. But it also kind of shown that you can create a game and recruit a crap ton of characters and have fun with it. Breath of Fire series, I mean, turn into a dragon and fighting your foes is epic in itself. Each individual story is well done. I'd say it's definitely near or around a Final Fantasy level storyline. Some are better than others. Also, multiple characters that you can choose from. Incorporated a fishing system, which is really cool, and a hunting system. It's definitely memorable, and when you think of JRPGs, Breath of Fire is always up there. Xenogears is something that you also, especially us older guys, will say is arguably one of the best JRPGs ever made because its story is just that epic. Not to mention you get to fight in mechs and upgrade them. But Xenogears is a really, really, really good story. It has a good fighting system. It can be hard at times. There are some spots that drag a little bit, but overall, it's a solid game. You can't just talk about RPGs and not talk about Zelda. Zelda is a really fun series. It's not one that I'm big into as much, but it incorporates adventures, a deep story, and lots of fun puzzles. Now I'm going to get more into open world. Fallout being one of my favorite post-apocalyptic series, incorporating humor, sci-fi, with a kind of like a 50s theme to it. It's really, really fun series. If you haven't tried it, you should. Baldur's Gate is one of the biggest hits when it comes to Dungeons and Dragons mixed with video gaming. I'd say this is one of the top ones that ever came out, and it has a really good story, lots of customization of what you can do and how you accomplish your goals to do it. So, wrapping them up, Daggerfall. This is the first of the Elder Scrolls that was really big. I think the first one's Arena, which is you just fight other monsters, and then Daggerfall came out, and it's complete open world adventure. Graphics aren't the greatest, but I spent so many hours of my life on this game, over and over and over again, playing, exploring, and just having a blast. And Skyrim is just, and Morrowind are also, great. But Daggerfall is what started it, so I put that one on here. Atari Adventure is it's one of the first open world games ever made, so I had to throw it out there for people who can remember it. You go around and you pretty much you start out and it's just literally it's an open world. You go wherever you want to go, and you have to find ways to progress the story. The Ultima series it's a really cool story. The games were always kind of difficult or painful or sluggish. This was the first RPG on a computer that I can remember. I'm 99% sure this is. And then it continued on to the SNES for Ultima games that had the Ultima Online. But yeah, this is awesome. One of my this is my series. I love a good story. I like to grind. I like to overpower the enemies when I can. And these are some of the games that really just started off this type of RPGs that got us where we are today. So not saying these are the best by any way, shape, or form. They're very great games, but almost all those are going to take elements from the games I've listed here. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you try out some of these games if you haven't, and have a wonderful day.